Malioboro Street and its buildings are important components of Yogyakarta's city identity, building a cultural atmosphere during traditional ceremonies. In 1998, when the first mall was built, the street changed into modern tendecies, threatening historical buildings. A survey of building facades, existing laws and policies analysis, also interviews with Yogyakarta government officials indicated local government's lack of concern towards private historical buildings. This study aims to use an example of Japan's conservation system for historical building groups, historical data, also architectural influences and details to build a better framework for cultural heritage laws and policy for heritage buildings in Indonesia. Fort Vredeburg Museum. Fort Vredeburg Museum. Official Indonesian name, Museum Benteng Vredeburg Yogyakarta, was a former colonial fortress located in the city of Yogyakarta. The military complex has been converted into an independence struggle museum which was opened in 1992. It is located in front of Javanese and Kraton Yogyakarta, Sultan's Palace. History. The fortress. Fort Vredeburg in the early 20th century. In 1760, after the foundation of the new Kraton Yogyakarta Hadiningrat, the Dutch governor of North Java Coast Nellis Harting requested a fort to be built in Yogyakarta. The barracks was built on a plot provided by Sultan Hamengkubuwono I. The first fort was a simple wooden fort with 4 bastions. Later in 1767 the fortress was extended and converted into a more permanent structure under supervision of a Dutch architect Frans Houk. After its completion in 1787 the fort was named Fort Russenburg, resting fort in Dutch. On 1867 the old fort was destroyed by an earthquake. The fort was rebuilt and renamed Fort Vredeburg, which in Dutch language means peace fort due to peaceful coexistence of the fort and the Kraton of the Sultan. Bank Indonesia is located next to Fort Vredeburg and opposite the presidential palace. It is housed in a colonial Dutch building. We were there after office hours and only viewed the building from the outside. Since this is an office and a bank, we were not sure if it is open for public viewing. This is certainly an attractive building and it's worth walking along the street to take a few pictures. It doesn't seem like it's open to the general public. But then I visited on a Sunday and so I'm not sure what arrangements operate during the week. Located close to the Museum Benteng Vredeburg and the Presidential Palace. Near Fort Vredeburg is the Bank Indonesia in Yogyakarta, and it doesn't look like a bank. It looks more like a church with its twin towers topped by onion domes. The old Dutch architecture shines through and praises must be heaped at the Indonesian authorities for preserving such grand buildings. In the setting sun's light the domes are lit up, creating a most wonderful and picture-pretty display. Yogyakarta is a historic city which is still inhabited. Hence, it has naturally grown under the influences of other cultures as well as the need for development. The city has been influenced especially by Western and Chinese cultures which added new elements to the city. This is evident in the existence of Western-style buildings such as Fort Vredeburg, Dutch Resident House, now Presidential Palace or Javanese, churches, shops, and hotels along the philosophical axis. While the Chinese influence has created Chinese shops and houses mainly along the Malioboro Street and in nearby kampongs such as Kitandan, Gandikan, and Gondomanan. The need for development has also changed the historic city center of Yogyakarta, particularly when the city has grown to become education center and tourism destination in Indonesia. During the struggle for Indonesian independence, this city was turned into temporary capital city of Indonesia, 1946 to 1950. However, The original plan of the city centre designed by Hamengkubuwana and its philosophical axis are remained to be easily recognized. What is more, efforts to reinstate the historic urban landscape have been undertaken by the government. The above explanation demonstrates that all the main components of the historical city centre of Yogyakarta signify the human life cycle. This historic urban landscape is an associative cultural landscape reflecting the Javanese philosophy of the human life process, from the very beginning of life to the reunification of the soul with the god, Sangkan Paraningdumadi. The female and male elements, represented by Yoni Panggung Krapiak and Lingam Tugu Palputi respectively, meet to generate life, which is represented by the kraton as central part of the city. The pathway from Panggung Krapiak to Kraton, south to north, reflects the conception of life, whereas the pathway from Tugu Palputi to Kraton, north to south, manifests the passage to the death and reunification with the god. Hence, the Kraton itself is perceived as the beginning and the end of human life. The philosophy behind the city plan of Yogyakarta is indeed a blend of local Javanese thought, Hinduism, and Islam. The historical city of Yogyakarta is a traditional Javanese city founded in 1756 by Pangeran Mangkubumi, or the first Sultan Hamengkubuwana, as the center of the Sultanate of Yogyakarta Hadaningrat, henceforth Kasultanan Yogyakarta. Distinct from other Javanese city, the city center was designed based on specific Javanese cosmology and philosophy as manifested in its location and plan. The location of Yogyakarta city was deliberately chosen to precisely reflect microcosmos, whereas the plan of the city center was drawn up based on the Javanese philosophy regarding the nature of human destiny. Accordingly, every component of the historical city center of Yogyakarta has its own philosophical meaning. The city center of Yogyakarta is located in a flatland at the slope of Merapi volcano. In the broader landscape, it is situated in between the Merapi volcano and the South Sea or Indian Ocean, which are considered as two significant elements in Javanese cosmology. To the east and the west, it is also flanked by three rivers each. There are Kali Kode, Kali Gajahwong, and Opaque River in the east side, and in the west side there are Kali Wainongo, Kali Bidog, and Progo River. In Hindu-Javanese cosmology, such a landscape has been perceived as a reflection of the universe, which consists of the Mahimayu mountain in the center surrounded by rings of interspersed sea and land. It was the reason for Sultan Hamengkubuwana to choose this flat land as the suitable place to build his palace and the city of Yogyakarta. In such a landscape setting, the historical city center of Yogyakarta was regarded as the microcosmos where humans should live to abide their destiny. The city was accordingly planned to reflect human destiny as conceptualized in Javanese philosophy. In this context, human destiny is explained in three basic concepts. Firstly, every human being should know the origin and ultimate destination of human life, Sangkan Paraningdumadi, and follow that human life cycle. Secondly, during their life, human have to maintain the harmonious relations to the god, other human, nature, Manungaling Koyalagusti. And, lastly, the duty of all human beings is to make the world beautiful and peaceful. Hey Mayu Hey Yuning Borwano. All these ideas are embodied in the plan of the historical city center of Yogyakarta. Originally, the historical city center of Yogyakarta encompassed the area of around 1,500 hectares situated between Kali Kode and Kali Wainongo, with the palace or kraton of the Sultanate of Yogyakarta as the center. The north and south borders were marked respectively by Tugu Palputi about 2 kilometers north from the kraton and Panggung Krapiak about 1.5 kilometers to the south. A south-north direction street connects those three main components of the historical city. This linear street represents a philosophical axis along which all the meaningful components of Yogyakarta city are placed to symbolize the entire human life cycle, Sangkan Paraning Dumadi. The truncated pyramid structure of Panggung Krapiak embodied female element, yoni or womb, where the earliest form of life is conceived. Here the human life cycle begins and then follows the course from Panggung Krapiak to Kraton, which depicts the human life sequence from conception to adulthood. Sangkan equals origins. Meanwhile, the life sequence from adulthood to the death and return to God, the Creator, is signified by the course from Tugu Palputi to Kraton. Tugu Palputi or white sign column was originally designed as a white cylindric column with a spheric-shaped top. This column symbolizes male element as well as the unity of the god with the king and the king with its people as a manifestation of harmonious relation of god and human. Manunggaling Koylo Gusti. When the Sultan meditation in Kraton, he will direct his concentration to this column. The course from Tugu Palputi to Kraton is divided into three parts symbolizing the way to achieve status in human life. From north to south, these parts represent the pathways to attain the excellence, Margotumo, enlightened life, Maliobra, and dignity, Margamilio. Along the course there are also two important city components, that is Kipatihan, administrative office, and Pasabaring Ro, Sultanate market. These two components signify the obstacles or temptations to accomplish an ideal life, that is in overly pursuit of bureaucratic power or social status and material well-being respectively.